I think we have a wrong denominator of wealth. I can tell you as somebody that has helped people make a lot of money and has a reasonable prosperity myself, I have 7 cars. I don't drive any of them. I have a beautiful beach house and I have a rather large home, which I enjoy. But if that defines me, then I'm a very, very superficial person, aren't I? And they're fun, but they're not essential to who I am. When something defines you, you've lost the connection with what life is all about.
Hey everyone, welcome to a special episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. This is a special episode because I got to interview the legendary Jay Abraham. Now, Jay is one of the top sought-after business advisors or strategic advisors. When you're growing your business and you have a problem, most people call Jay. He's the man behind so many different marketers that you see out there on the planet. He is a staple at Tony Robbins' business mastery. He's an advisor to Tony Robbins. He's behind guys like Daymond John. So many big people that you know today look to Jay for advice when it comes to growing their business. Now, Jay has a mastermind and he charges $25,000 to come to an event for 3 days. It's called Breakthrough at the Beach. And I was invited to be a special guest and attend his 75th birthday party and come out to this event so I could interview him and provide value to his mastermind. So this is an incredible episode. I got to sit down with Jay live in front of all those people and get to interview him. So you're not going to want to miss this one. Check it out.
We'll start with a very important one.
Okay.
How?
Not an unimportant one?
No, this is the most important question. Probably the most important question over the last 3 days. How, with someone like you who's traveled as much as you've traveled, you are always committed to a lot of events, you're speaking, you're all over the place. You just celebrated a milestone birthday. How do you look so good? How do you keep looking so young?
You're sweet. You know the book, The Portrait of Dorian Gray?
Yeah.
Inside, it's not that good. You know, I'll tell you a couple of things. I do stuff. Sometimes it comes here. I spend more money than a lot of people make on shots, and I get stem cells. And I think most of it is probably good genes as far as the external. But I think it's that I'm stimulated at a level that is way, way above the average person. You know, at any point of time, I'm involved in 60, 70 diverse businesses around the world, and I'm asked to exercise my intellect in ways that they're just mammoth challenges I have to resolve and opportunities. And I think it manifests to what your brain sends to the rest of your body. But even deep down inside, I got arthritis, I got bursitis, I got, I'm on meds and things, but I really enjoy 2 things. I like human beings, and I love surprises, and I love discovery, and I love contribution, and I'm still having a very good time. And I think what happens with a lot of people my age or younger, they're really not having a very good time. And I think their brain, whether they can try to conceal it, the brain won't, and it'll manifest itself in how you look and I think I'd like to hope there's an aura that I radiate that is joyous. It doesn't mean I'm always fun. I'm much more tough love than some of you guys are into Tony, but I really have an enormous passion, compassion, empathic respect for entrepreneurs who are trying to create value. And it rocks my boat to see how they do it and how they jump to it. I'm having a good time.
How many entrepreneurs do you think spend their time too unhappy or building something? Everyone wants to build something big, but if you're going to build something big and you're unhappy, you're going to be even unhappier. How many people should start focusing more on the happiness part?
How about all of them? I tell a story, and you may have heard it, and everyone's going, you tell a story again, because we're at an event. But I've had 3 midlife crises. One at 40, one at 50, one at approximately 60. Because I got started at 18. And I made a lot of money, and I went through massive divorce. And I was very, very frustrated. And I have this therapist, and we're getting into the goodies and the complexities and the forlornness of my life. And they go, your 55 minutes or your 50 minutes are over. We'll have to complete it next week, and I tolerated that for that one. It was very arduous, and I had the next one like that, and finally, the definitive one, which is going to be, I am ADD, but it'll feed the answer. I decided to buy the therapist for a week. I just said, I want you for a whole week. If I don't show up, I'll send every screwed up person I know, and it'll be a good one. I did, and he was laughing his ass off because I have all these people that I know that never would go to a therapist, but if you send them and they don't pay, it's sort of fun for them. And he had a great experience, but we had all this very deep and not time diminishing or time limiting conversation. And one thing he came up with as a response to a question I asked him transformed my life, and it's the very protracted answer to your question. He said, most people are obsessed in life with the end product. They want to make $1 million, $5 million, $10 million. They want the fastest growing company. They want, a $40 million asset for retirement. They want the biggest house, the prettiest wife, the most toys. If they're unlucky enough to get that for that reason alone, it is anticlimactic. The angels aren't going to, the heavens won't open, the angels aren't going to trumpet, Nirvana is not going to befall us, life isn't going to forevermore be perfect. He said, that's end product oriented. He said, if you understand that the process is as good as it gets, and it's great that we're in the midst of some very quality people with really high level and purposes and their characters, their ethos, they're really quality human beings. But if I was talking to, which I did on the way, I had a long conversation, sort of, with the housekeeper who doesn't speak good English, and we're talking about her life, and that was just as satisfying. I think we take ourselves too seriously, and we don't realize. I realize this because of my age. And it's like the Cat Stevens, we're on this earth for a very short period of time. You better enjoy the process, because the one I was just listening to, Barry does his sessions, and I was just on it. And he goes, the one thing everyone doesn't realize, everything that's causing your problem is you refuse to acknowledge that the only constant is change. It's going to happen. You can go, oh, geez, the world's unfair, this is happening. It's going to happen. So you might as well say, how can I enjoy change? And I think I have shifted a lot. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I used to get very frustrated when I had more of a temper on Monday morning because all the crap and the shit hits the fan. And now I wake up thinking, I wonder what unexpected surprises I'm going to be befallen that I could never in a million years contemplate. And it's a shift. But I think you have to enjoy the process. And if it's not perfect, I mean, if you look at it, every day we're on the earth, and I'm sure you hear it, it's a gift, right? I mean, I had Barry come because I torqued my back and my neck because I don't do the exercises I should. And you realize that every day you awaken, at my age you go to sleep hoping you'll wake up. I mean, without being terribly, terribly rude, depends on what report you hear. Either the life expectancy of a man today is either 73 or 78. So I've either outlived or only have 3 more years. I don't know that that's true of me, but if it is, I better be very grateful, don't you think? And appreciate my chance to contribute and learn. And I think if we're always a teacher and a student, life is really fascinating.
I agree. Last year, we took our first family vacation. My first vacation in 5 years. I was too busy building the businesses. And I was watching my kids play, and I was looking at their faces. And I said, if I could just freeze this moment right now, this is all I want to do. And then I realized that so many entrepreneurs have it backwards, right? We try to build our life around the business versus building the business around the life we want. And that was the biggest awakening for me as I came back, and I'm like, I just want to be happy. We're in different seasons, right? Different seasons in business.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things is, you're right, if the business owns you, then what do you really have? And you can be an operator, you can be, you can be anything you want, but I think even if you're above the foray, if you're so entrenched in it that you've got to be part of it all the time, you really haven't accomplished a lot. What's the purpose of a business? It's to give you freedom, supposedly. It's to give you an asset. And if it's not giving you freedom, even if you've moved above it, but you're actually too busy strategizing all the time, I don't know that you've accomplished a lot. I really was taken, by the way, yesterday with Michael and Bandwidth. And I was taken, some of you watched, some of you didn't, the video I played with the 80-20, 80-20, 80-20. And I think that Renaissance time in band, we don't really allow ourselves to thoroughly appreciate what's important. And I think we have a wrong denominator of wealth, not just in people in this room, but makes people think that wealth is financially only denominated. That's a very small part of it. You do have to get past your lifestyle, but I can tell you, as somebody that has helped people make a lot of money and has a reasonable prosperity myself, I have 7 cars. I don't drive any of them. I have an art collection to die for, and I really sort of forget to even look at it. I have a beautiful beach house, and I have a rather large home, which I enjoy, but if that defines me, then I'm a very, very superficial person, aren't I?
I agree.
And I mean, they're fun, but they're not essential to who I am. When something defines you, I think you've lost the connection with what life is all about.
I want to be tactical for a second.
Okay, let's go tactical.
Let's go tactical. We're at Breakthroughs at the Beach. For the audience who's not here, who's listening, or even the audience here who don't want to wait to come to the beach to have breakthroughs,
Yes.
how can someone construct or create the atmosphere to have a breakthrough?
Well, I think if I tell you what this really is, if I break the anatomy of what this is and sort of reveal the big reveal to everybody, and anybody can do it if they want. Yeah, what this is all about is forcing you to develop a few different skill sets. One is listening. Most people don't know how to listen. The other is traveling way, way, way outside of your area of understanding, whether it's your skill as a business person, whether it's your industry. The other is to learn how to creatively extrapolate, meaning believing that you can find application in almost anything you are introduced to. The other is trying to really, really see yourself as you are versus as you think people see you, and then questioning literally your assumptions, because most of our assumptions are terribly, terribly wrong. If I have anything that I think that I have been able to represent to the business world in a very long and a very fruitful career, it's that funnel vision is not just the most profitable and powerful, but the most satisfying thing you can cultivate. But you got to be willing to do, in the beginning, to learn about things that you thought you had no interest in, you didn't even think existed. All the people that are getting the greatest breakthrough here, I can promise, with very little exception, they're not coming from the interaction I or anybody else is having directly with them. It's from the interaction that either I or somebody else had with somebody else, and more probably dialogue that precipitated in the corridor, at lunch, when they're walking to the restroom or their hotel room. And when they embrace that, that's where Tony calls it juice. That's where all the ideas, the insights, the excitement, the possibilities come from. And I think that anybody can do that. When we used to do, we did this program I was talking about, it was called Do Something Different. All I did was force people for 13 weeks, every week, to do one thing different. I already talked about one of the exercises, and I don't want to repeat it just because I don't want to be redundant, but another one was just drive around and look at two different things. Look at supreme structures. They can be bridges, they can be skyscrapers, they can be any kind of a structure where some really big thinker had to really start with a vision, and they had to engineer it, and they had to totally retrofit it, and realize if people can do that, you can do so much more, number one. Number two, go at night and sit outside a large grocery and watch how they stock and how they change, and realize how much more is going on, and that your infinitesimal seeming problem or barrier is just like it's nothing. You were here. We had this gentleman who was really interesting talk right before our lunch, and he was amazing because he knocked down about every kind of erroneous presupposition I think anybody could have about growth, don't you think?
Yep.
And he did it very, very authentically. But when you're done, doesn't mean you'll do anything with it. Most people don't. But he basically gave you a clear path to almost anything you want for your business, don't you think? And he showed you how he's having a good time. The guy is a beacon of joy. We had a fellow, you weren't here, but we had a gentleman at our mastermind, which occurred back to back with this. He was only here for a day. His name is, well, we use his name, but he's a very wealthy man. He sold 300,000 URLs to GoDaddy. He kept the best 12,000 that he doesn't sell them. He leases them, so he still owns them. He's got 5 or 6 massive businesses. He looks happier than anybody I've ever met. He donates money to charity. A very great father. He lives in Canada. A humanitarian. And when we went to lunch, he goes, "Oh, by the way, I have macular degeneration. I don't know how many more years I'll be able to even see." But it wasn't even evident for one iota. And I think that I've always said you need the 3 Ps to have a great life: passion, purpose, possibility. And that's not singular. If you're involved in a relationship, whether it's a marriage, significant other, whether it's you have children, if you're not passionate and purposeful, it's going to be at very best suboptimal. Your business, your health, and I'm not as good in my health, in your life. And I think that when you realize how much more is possible, and I always say from a day, from a moment, from a dollar, from a business, from people, from access, from interaction, and that starts by being applicable to business, but it translates to everything. And I think when you find out that everything is the same, it's a very powerful realization, very liberating. I think it's intoxicating, and I think it changes everything. I don't know if I went too ADD on you, but there's my answer.
Good. You give out a lot of information. I'm sure a lot of people here consume a lot of information. I'm sure you consume a lot of information. What's your process for synthesizing that information and actually turning it into some sort of model or framework, or be able to leverage it or teach it or actually apply it?
Well, I'll give you an answer, but I'll be as humanly frail as I do. As I've gotten older, I've taken in so much information that it's rather remarkable, and the scope of expanse that I can draw from is profound, but I'm not very detailed at keeping track of it anymore. So my answer probably would be better before I became my age and my extents, because I used to be a little bit more vertical. Anytime I had an interaction with anybody, after the interaction, I would spend 10 minutes reflecting on what just happened. It could be a phone call, it could be reading a book, it could be a meeting, a presentation, and I want to know what was and I had a sort of a mental template. What did I learn most about either the topic, the person, myself, or all of them that I don't want to forget, positive or negative? What did I experience from the other side that really rocked, that I want to incorporate into my conduct? Could be a writing style, as a book. Could be a speaking style. Could be certain phraseology. I used to have a client, and every time I talked to him, he would say "thank you" with such emotion that I really felt like he was really grateful. But most people, when they say thank you, it's a patronizing gesture. So I reflected on that. I reflected on what's the lesson I learned that I have to do a lot more of. What's the lesson I learned that I want to make sure that I don't do? Was I listening enough? Was I not listening enough? Was I dominating too much? And I just go through it, and I would, everyone talks about my vocabulary. I think I have a relatively great vocabulary, but it's the result that I had a really weak vocabulary, and for, I don't remember, 5 or 10 years straight, every day I would get a thesaurus open, I'd find 5 words, and I'd use it 20 times correctly. And then I realized precise communication, even if it seems a little bit intimidating, is very powerful. It's powerful even if you don't understand what's being said, because you at least, if I'm not trying to be an arrogant intellectual, I'm not being a dick, if you know it's coming from the heart, you know the message is relevant and important. So, I don't know, there's some thoughts.
Wrap up with this. Jeff Bezos was interviewed, and he said, so many people ask him, what's going to change? What's going to change, and how do they ride the wave? How do they ride the curve? And he said the better question is, we ask what's not going to change.
I love that. Yeah.
We're now in 2024, just started 2024. In the business growth, the marketing, however you want to take it, what's not going to change?
I think that there are certain immutable aspects of humanity that won't change, but I think they're being a little bit skewed with younger people who want to all be influencers. That's the career choices. I want to be an influencer. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a lawyer. I don't want to take over my dad's business. I just want to be an influencer. But I think that human nature, it's been immutable. I used to travel all over the world, and again, this is an escape from exactly answering that. But I was vividly impacted, whether I was in a communist country, a socialist country, a capitalist country. Everyone wanted the same thing. They wanted better lives for their kids, for themselves. They wanted to be happier. And some of them, in Asia particularly, they just worked so hard because they tend to be more tactical, and that's the only way they knew to get there. But it wasn't really the goal they had. That was just innate in their culture. And I think that those desires won't change. I think that we have and are losing a lot of our humanity, and that scares me. I think our world has gotten very what's the word? It's a tragedy, irrespective of what your political or your religious beliefs are, when two factions can't collaborate in a meaningful and respectful way to resolve issues. If I hate you because you are whatever kind of a religion or political, and I want you dead, that's a scary thing. When people don't mind throwing bottles at the stars on stage and shooting people when they go by, and the cancel culture is interesting. Part of it is positive, but a lot of it is it's a promiscuous power that I don't believe is fairly exercised by a lot of people. But it also brings people to question. I think it's funny. I have been asked a lot to do video on a lot of the social media because I'm not bad on video, and I said I don't want my personal life public. A couple of years ago, Daymond John was being very nice, and he got me a meeting with William Morris. And I really wanted to do a reality show. That'd be really cool. I'll do interactions. I'll do mini hot seats. I'll do the kind of stuff I do with Tony. That'd be cooler than hell. They didn't want that. They wanted to see my life, my family. And I said, I don't want to do that. They're going to get divorced. My kids will end up, being drug addicts. And I think that the world has gotten to a point where I'm hoping that I hope I will have left it better off, but I worry about the future for my children who are older. You should worry a lot about it for your children, because I think it's tremendously out of control. I think it's very unsettling to see where it ends up. And the United States, just as an example, and it's it's worldwide. We're a very young country. I mean, we're a very young country, and we're already, we're splitting at the seams with our disrespect for one another and for our driving beliefs and what formed us. It's a really sad indictment, and I think we should all. It's interesting. I was asked if I would help somebody try to bring civility to the political environment, and I was thrilled to want to do it. However, he's somebody who's really big in a very large group that you would all know, and I don't want to breach it and be critical of this group, but it's a very influential group. And he said, I can't believe it. This man's wealthy and he's retired. I spend 20 to 30 hours a week of my time trying to do this, and I get almost nobody to help. They say, well, I don't have the time. I don't want to get involved. I don't want... And he said, you are involved. I mean, no action, you're involved. You're letting the inmates run the prison. You're letting the chaos toxify, not just our life as we know it, but we're going to create, if we don't watch out, this dystopian future for our children that I fear for it. I'm not worried about myself. I'm going to be around that long, but it's troubling.
So how do we not be scared and now leverage that to grow our business?
I think we've got to commit to be better citizens, whatever you believe a citizen is. I think we have to take ownership of appreciating the privileges that our life gives us and respect one another. You don't have to agree with one another. Somebody taught me long ago that if you're in an environment of a lot of different people in a lot of different roles, they can be your clients, they can be your prospects, they can be your employees, they can be your partners, they can be your neighbors, they can be your competitors. You have to start by, instead of going, I hate you, I don't like what you stand for, I don't like your style, you irritate me. You got to start by trying to first examine, explore, understand, appreciate, respect, and acknowledge how they're seeing life, because that's their reality. And until you understand that you and I aren't necessarily having the same conversation this moment. I mean, you have different definitions of word, you have different experiences. I may come up with a word that projects in my mind a very vivid image of something, and it may be a totally different image in yours. So I need to be in alignment, and I think respect for human beings is lacking. I believe every human being, with little exception, and there are terrible people, and there are dicks, and there's some really nasty ones, but I think everyone should be treated, no matter where they are in the socioeconomic spectrum, as someone who is relevant, has significance, and is there's another word, relevancy, significance, and there's another word I always think of, relevancy, significance, and not just importance, but dignity. And if you don't give people relevancy, significance, and dignity, they resent the crap out of you. And it's not fair, because we're all relevant. We're all meaningful human beings, and I don't know, that's just it.
Be a better human. Last question for you.
Okay.
We know a lot of similar people. I know the Rich Shepherds, all these people, they credit J. Abraham. You're the godfather, the marketing. Who was the J. Abraham to the J. Abraham?
I was influenced in marketing by a number of people. In life, it was a guy that I worked with at Icy Hot. I think I would be surprised if he's still alive. I was influenced by a man who's deceased, Dan Rosenthal, who had worked with David Ogilvy, and he taught Gary Vaynerchuk how to market. I was influenced in marketing by a few books that were prominent and written back in the 30s, 40s. One was My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by a guy named Claude Hopkins. I was influenced by another book by a man. I was about a man named Albert Lasker, who was employed this man. I was influenced by some of the other marketing books. But in marketing, it would have been those factors and forces. But probably, I always was influenced, but when I met this gentleman, Dan Rosenthal, he forced me to do something quite profound. He said, here's the books you got to read. This was before the internet, and to find these books, I had to pay almost every dollar I had to book finders because it was like needles in the haystacks, and they were all old books. And he said, here's the book. Well, this book, there's 2 books this one man wrote. One is his philosophies, his principles, and the other is his autobiography. And when you read his principles, they will be interesting, but they won't come alive till you see the experiences he encountered to cause him to formulate that. Then I want you to read this other book, which is the life of the person he worked for, and it's more expanded, contextual, so you'll see it full up. And then I want you to do it again, and we do it again. And oh, by the way, do it again. And I did that. And in the beginning it was difficult because it was boring as hell to read it twice. The third time was pretty interesting, but after the 50th time, everything came alive. And this guy showed me things like marginal net worth, lifetime value, all the things that I didn't really know that I knew, but I had sort of accidentally been able to a minor degree, access and benefit from. But when I understood, it's like when you uncover what you can do with oil or nuclear energy or solar, and it's funny. There can be a torrential river with a huge waterfall by itself, and it's nothing. And then you put an electric plant there, and all of a sudden it's lighting 1 million homes. And so that really sort of ignited and lit my mind up, and that was a very key time in my life.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.